super friend guest on tonight. Her name is Dr. Ericka, and we're going to get into some nitty gritty, but I do want to allow some people to come on, and so we can, have some discussion, give you an opportunity to ask some questions to the expert tonight, and make sure that you share, because sharing is caring. If you're watching this on the replay, I want you to do a hashtag replay, so it kind of gives us a little information on how our listeners and our watchers are kind of coming in onto our show. So we thank you so very much for that. Just to introduce who I am Dr. Nissa. I am your board certified chiropractor and business coach. I help chiropractors and entrepreneurs with startups by giving them the blueprint that's necessary to start their business without making costly mistakes. So tonight's subject is one that's very dear to me. So dear that I wrote an entire book about it, Trauma to Triumph, talking about how unresolved hurt can really damage the future of your business. It can quite be so damaging that it'll keep you from even starting. So we're going to talk about that tonight. We understand that we're in the midst of COVID-19 right now. So we're going to segue a little bit at the end and talk about mental health while you're having to telework from home. Most of us are having to use Zoom or Cisco WebEx or whatever portals that you may have with your job to kind of communicate with one another. And sometimes that can make you feel very isolated. And so we don't want you to feel like you're on an island by yourself. So we're going to talk about that tonight with our experts. So enough about me, you guys. My boss up hub, they know who I am, but I want people to know who you are, Dr. Ericka. So introduce yourself to my group.
Oh, I appreciate such an enthusiastic introduction. I'm so excited to be here tonight. For all of you that don't know, I'm Dr. Ericka, double board certified psychiatrist and integrative lifestyle coach. I help women who are disgruntled with life and love redefine and reboot their dreams in order to attract more aligned people and opportunities. So I've been to school forever.
Forever.
Forever. And ever.
Well, we have another one of our super friends that has come on. We're going to tell Dr. Dia, hello, how you doing? Thank you so much for tuning in. So I'll tell you this, Dr. Ericka, I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs all the time. And one of the biggest things that we talk about before we even talk about getting your logistics together for your business is about mindset. Mm-hmm. So, because that's a big one. And so I kind of want to talk about, two of the biggest things that most business owners before they launch, they think about self-doubt. And then they also talk about fear. So let's kind of dibble and dabble in that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So how do you think that self-doubt and how fear and those things that may have happened to us in the past could definitely stifle or prevent someone to launch in the business realm?
Well, there are a few things that go into self-doubt and fear. One of the things that's big when you have self-doubt is believing that you don't necessarily deserve to be successful, or that you're good enough to be successful, or that you're really actually going to be successful. So the interesting thing about when you start looking at self-doubt and fear is there's something that they talk about in mindset. So mindset, simply stated, is just how you think. And please pardon me, I'm still working. The biggest thing on this COVID life I'm working on is trying not to touch my face. As you see, I touch my hair. That's like my go-to, trying not to touch my face. But it's just kind of how you think and kind of how all your perceptions are put together. And what ends up happening when people have a lot of thoughts of self-doubt and also a lot of thoughts of fear is a lot of times that puts them aligned with having what we call a scarcity mindset. So it's just a way of thinking that you're thinking that things won't happen, or they can't happen, or you don't deserve for them to happen, or you don't have what you need to make them happen. And the hard thing with that is when you're thinking from a point of scarcity, or you're thinking that you're doubting yourself, or that you're not worthy or you don't have the skills to do something, is sometimes it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because either you'll accidentally sabotage or you'll start getting stuck. And because you're feeling fear or self-doubt, you may even know what you need to do and then find yourself not doing it, or find yourself thinking about doing it and thinking about all the reasons why this isn't going to work, and not actually putting your thoughts and what you need to do into action, because you're just literally spending all your time thinking of everything that can go wrong, feeling everything will go wrong, and your mind is so tied up in that you can't even do what you need to do to be successful,
Right.
even if you have the skills.
Right. So we're going to go into fear, because, you know, my acronym for fear is like false evidence appearing as real. And
I keep meaning to use that as a
you
quote.
got to.
I know. We talked about it when you were writing this book. I wrote it down because I was like, that's some good stuff. When Dr. Nissa was writing this book, I was sitting next to her.
She definitely was. So, you know, that's my take on fear. It's not real. And so how does one overcome that, especially when they're about to take a huge risk, and monetary and time-wise, in opening their own business?
Well, one of the huge things about fear, and there are kind of a couple categories of fear we're kind of talking about here. One is just the simple fear of, naturally, if you're starting a business, or you're increasing your business or changing your business, that there's a certain amount of money you need to be able to pay your own bills and for your business to be successful. So then you're looking at fears that are grounded in things that may be reality based.
Right.
So things that and fears that aren't. And one of the things that kind of circles back to the really thoughtful topic that Dr. Nissa came up with, is that especially people that have experienced hurt or trauma, is that they're naturally going to have fears because the world hasn't been a safe place for them. And those fears about the world not being a safe place for you can transfer to other areas that have nothing to do at times, even with why you initially were scared. Some of them may, and some of them may not. So, so I think the biggest thing with trying to overcome it, one of the first thing is reality testing. When you start getting afraid to do something, start thinking of all the things related to it. So if I think about Dr. Nissa does a million things. You probably don't even know all of them because she does literally a million things and has a million businesses. But if you just take like her boutique, for we'll just pick a business because you got so many. That if she was having fears about doing her boutique and stuff, it's, you have to reality test. Okay, do I know how to pick out items for the boutique? Am I comfortable with what goes into a boutique? How well do I talk to people? And if we all know Dr. Nissa, she talks to people really well. She's very fashionable. She's very well organized, understands what goes into a business. And you have to start reality testing that, because your fears will tell you you don't know how to do things. That's what fear does. Fear literally just robs you of your confidence and feeling you can do things. So you
You're
have to, and that's why it's also important to have a tribe to remind you of what you can do when you start getting scared.
Yeah, it does definitely. I say fear equals lack of execution. I mean, you start getting paralyzed and can't do anything because you're so scared of whatever the results are. And a lot of entrepreneurs ask me all the time, you know, how did you get over that? I was like, I was too scared not to do whatever I had set my mind to. Before I answer your next question, I do want to just say hello to some of the people that have come on. Dr. Jaquel, thank you so much for coming, for chiming in. I see, is that the last name is Pease? I don't want to say the first name wrong.
Well, Dr. Zinnia, thanks for coming on.
Thank
I
you
know
for
her. We
jumping
have Dr.
on.
Zarina on.
Yes, I see that. Thank you.
We have all the Z's and X's.
I see. We want to say hello, 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 hello. So the next thing that I kind of want to talk about is I read a huge statistic, Ericka, and I wanted to kind of get your input on there. I read this study by a guy named Michael Freeman, and I'm going to read it so that I don't mess up
Okay.
his work. He stated that entrepreneurs are 50% more likely to report having a mental health condition, with some specific conditions being incredibly prevalent amongst the folks that founded the business. Not so much people that have like a franchise or something like that, but we're talking about a true startup. And they said that 2 times more likely to suffer from depression, 3 times more likely to suffer from substance abuse, 6 times more often they're going to have ADHD, 10 times more often they're going to be bipolar, and 2 times having suicidal thoughts at some point of the business venture. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are, number one, it's a very loaded statement. It's super loaded. But I think my first thought is that if you start thinking of what are the qualities of an entrepreneur, is that there are some people that are natural born entrepreneurs, or that's all they know because that's what they grew up with. And then there are people that are entrepreneurs because something happened that pushed them to feel like they either needed to be in control of their own business and destiny, or that they could do it better than what's out there. And the other thing is just, so I think when you start looking at some of those situations is, number one, we know people with ADHD and bipolar tend to be more creative people. So there are people that can also turn over a lot of ideas, which suits them at times for being an entrepreneur and innovating and those kinds of things, because they can come up with so many ideas. The other is the amount of pressure that it takes to successfully run a business, especially because, as we're seeing even right now with COVID, life doesn't stop because you have a business. So you're being an entrepreneur, especially if you have a business large enough to have staff or you have contractors, but the rest of your life is still going and chugging along, and those responsibilities are there. And it's a lot of responsibility, effort, and energy to successfully run a business. And especially when you're looking at when people are starting up, and there's almost no one that is 100% successful all the time. People learn from failure, which means
Right.
that most of the people that are successful entrepreneurs, or even working at being an entrepreneur, have at some point had to deal with failure.
Right.
So it's just a lot of stress and pressure just on people, which makes it's not unusual to think that someone might have all this pressure and sometimes get depressed or anxious, or turn to substances to cope with it while they're managing everything else at the same time. So I think it's a matter of, do these situations select out for these folks, or if it's the situation itself kind of fuels some of these mental health conditions.
Right. And I'm quite certain this has to lead to burnout at some point down the road. I'm just sitting here thinking about, entrepreneurs and the mental and emotional strain that comes along with owning your own business, because there's so many things that you're having to, think about in a day. You're thinking about how you have to be so strong and have to be a rock, because you don't want the other people that's working for you to see you in any vulnerable way, because you'll be looked at as weak and they'll try to take, over on you or something. Also, I have this thing where I kind of do this myself. It's like, oh, I am the company syndrome, because I'll start to say whatever negative thing that somebody may say, I take that on for myself. Or if I fail to meet a goal that I had for my business, I'll say it was me that personally failed to meet those goals. So I need some help in that department as well. What are some of the things that, entrepreneurs really could do, some takeaways that they can do to kind of overcome some of that emotional and mental stress that comes along with owning your own business?
I'd say the first bucket I would put this into are things that just kind of help you be as well as you can be, because naturally the better care you take care of your body, the better you will think. Because if I need you to get good sleep, because if you don't sleep, insomnia alone with no other mental health issues can cause someone to feel down, someone to feel nervous, people to be irritable and snappy, and to have some decreased attention. So that can all happen just from not sleeping. And the one thing you know of being an entrepreneur is that you have so many tasks to balance and things to do. So if you can't focus or you're snapping on everybody, it's going to be a little bit more difficult.
Right.
The next is making sure that you're feeding your body correctly and eating. Number one, that you're eating, because one of the things I think that happens in entrepreneurship is people get so busy with tasks that they don't eat. And then by not eating regularly, when they do eat, they're more prone to get things that are quick or really easy. And that puts you in that mode of getting either fast food or unhealthy food, which then can cause you to have almost like get sluggish because of what you ate. And then you have stuff to do, but you're sluggish because you ate something crazy. So the next thing is just eating healthy and eating regularly. They all sound very simple, but I think all of us as entrepreneurs stay so busy that it's easy to get so focused on the task that we're not spending the time taking care of ourselves. The next thing is getting regular exercise. And those to me come from that wellness end of we
Mhm.
need your body. And pardon me, I'm going to figure out which direction to shift. The sun has shifted. We had lighting issues before we started. So now I'm really lit up right here.
Right. Half of you has
Yes,
the sunshine.
my left shoulder is glowing. But we're gonna work through this, and thanks for hanging up in here with me and all of my crazy lighting. I feel like that's my theme of the week. The next thing is to do your best to find what method of organization works for you, because there are so many different ways to handle project management and organization. So it ends up being a little bit personal, but at the end of the day, you need something,
Right.
because you need to be able to, number one, feel like you're effective and productive and managing your time well with your business so that you can meet your business goals. But we also need you to be organized enough that your business can stay in its compartment and you can still have your personal life separate. Because that's the other thing is if your business life bleeds into 24 hours a day, then you're not going to have that time to nurture your interpersonal relationships, to have some time to kind of shut down or do some things for you, because you're going to be working with your business constantly. So it's being able to find a way to be efficient enough that there can be boundaries around your entrepreneurial exploits
Right. I
and your
yeah.
personal life.
I know that that was one of the major things that you worked with me on, is finding that balance with self-care and working and not doing more than on one side than the other. And so we need to make sure that we're kind of, the things that we tell our patients every day. Got to eat well, you got to sleep, you need to exercise, you need to make sure your mind gets rest. We're saying those things on a constant basis, but sometimes because you're so overwhelmed with all the things that you have to do, you forget the things that you're teaching others all day long. So I'm going to raise my hand and say that's me sometimes. And my Dr. Ericka has to keep me on track a lot.
You're Dr. Ericka with the crazy lighting.
Right. So another thing that I want to talk about is how startups can definitely be hard and alienating. And so those are kind of things when I think about, like, why do entrepreneurs suffer so much acutely from mental health And when I thought about the question, those were just some of the two things that stuck out to me, is that yeah, it's hard to start up a business and be well at it, and it can be quite alienating at some time. So let's kind of talk about those two things a little bit more. Let's talk about how we need to keep that balance between making sure our business is successful and making sure we're spending the time with our friends, our family, and our significant others. So what are some of the things that we can do to kind of beef up those engagements as the sun is moving? And
I can't win. I'm like, I can't seem to get my whole face in the light.
you were searching for the light. Caroline,
Carol
go
Ann.
to the light,
I'm
Caroline.
Carol Ann, but I'm trying to go to the light. But
come on, Caroline, come on to the light. So we just want to make sure, how do we do that? Because I know for me, before you answer the question, I know for me, I'm so tunnel vision on, okay, this has to work, this has to do fine, and then I'm investing into the future with my friends, family, and my significant other. So how do I make sure that I don't get so focused on the end game with my business that I miss out on, those memories with those folks that I was just talking about?
well, and I think that is an excellent point to bring up, and it's one of it goes back to what we were talking about as far as having boundaries around your business and your personal life. And I think the next thing is as we prioritize our businesses, we have to equally prioritize our lives and our interpersonal relationships, because those interpersonal relationships are the things that are going to feed us, especially in those times where business is just beating you down, because nothing's great all the time.
Right.
And there's always something going on, and you don't want a situation where you end up on an island, partially because you left everybody behind and you didn't nurture any of your relationships while you were working on your business.
Right. But sometimes we think that, that person doesn't understand. They don't know what's going on. They don't have a business. So they really don't have any skin in the game. How are they going to help me overcome, issues that I'm having there? So you kind of just stay on your island because you don't think anybody can help you.
Well, and I think that's the other thing is, just like for anything we have relationships that serve different functions. So you're going to have your loved ones and you're going to have friends, and some of them may or may not understand your entrepreneurial journey. But then if you don't have close friends or people that understand it, then you need to come up with another group of people
Right.
that you can bounce off those emotions and those thoughts and problem solve with. So it doesn't matter if your best friend doesn't understand, because that's not what they're going through, then you still have some people that fulfill that role. And right now it's a great time because there's so many ways to be connected with people. So from finding like-minded people in Facebook groups before this issue of physical distancing, there are social clubs and things like that that tend to bring small business owners together. Like in Atlanta, we have the Gathering Spot and the Commerce Club. But, and then you can look into other people, that may be entrepreneurial, that your relationship more centers around problem solving and interacting around business versus just hanging out.
Right. Right. I see that Dr. Ken is coming in, Dr. Brandy. Hi, Myra. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. So let's get to the big elephant in the room as it relates to my topic of tonight, because I have been very, very transparent in my book about the traumas that happened to me growing up. For those of you that have not read the book, you should go and get it. And we're going to talk about some of the offerings that Dr. Ericka has as well. But it's trauma2triumphbook.com. And so we want to talk about like when really like traumatic things happen into your life, and if they happen multiple times over and over again, how do you have the wherewithal and the good mental health to move past that. I know the steps that I had to take to move forward, but we want to entertain our audience tonight in understanding what those steps are to move past those unresolved hurts so that you can be your best future person.
Well, and I think the other thing is it's so easy, and we've had these conversations in so many different spaces where everyone's looking for either a self-help or a quick fix that deals with trauma.
Right.
And, I'm honest, after all of my years of experience in education and human behavior, there is no quick fix to trauma.
Right.
So there are kind of two levels of these kind of traumatic experiences. There's that level where you may be able to utilize all common therapies or treatments that don't include a mental health professional, such as, looking at affirmations and meditations and finding ways to be grounded and centered and, potentially spiritually and praying and those kinds of things. So
Mm-hmm.
there's some people that's enough to get them over the hump with their trauma. But there are a lot of people that need professional help. And I think the hard thing of what we're dealing with is there's so much intergenerational trauma because people didn't get treated. So you have somebody that doesn't get treated. So their trauma reactions and their trauma reactive behavior gets transmitted to their kids.
Right.
They don't get treated. Then it gets to their kids. And it just keeps going on and on and on. And for a lot of people, the best way to break the cycle is to actually get professional help, because a lot of these traumas people are dealing with weren't meant to be dealt with alone. And especially in the African American community,
Right.
there was this history. Just because people survived slavery without going to a therapist doesn't mean that automatically anything that happens to us is something you suck up and you should be
Right.
fine from. And I think part of it's giving yourself and anyone the grace and space that sometimes it's not fine. Sometimes it's not okay, and sometimes you need some help. And that help sometimes can be something as simple as having a therapist or numerous kinds of therapy. It doesn't even always have to include medication. But I think the hard thing is a lot of people are trying to heal trauma on their own, and that can be rather difficult.
Right. I'll tell you that even though I did do some work with mine, I still have to deal with it on a daily basis of the things that happen to me, so that I don't get sucked into what I call a stalemate with it, because it can really have you so focused on it where you can't make the decisions that's very demanding to be a business owner. You got to be able to have all your full faculties to make some wise decisions if you want your business to be prosperous. So let's talk a little bit before we get out of here about what you got going on, Dr. Ericka, because I know everybody keeps seeing this wonderful thing going down the bottom of the screen of this covidaffirmations.com.
Thank you.
Right. So I want people to know how they can get in touch with you. So give them your website, whatever information that you want to plug.
Okay.
Time. Go ahead.
So again, I'm Dr. Ericka. My website is drericka.com. That's DOCTORERICKA.com. My parents used all the letters. No letter left behind. On all social media, it's the same thing, at Dr. Ericka. Spelled out with all the letters, DOCTORERICK. With the crawler is with what's going on right now with physical distancing, COVID-19, coronavirus slash that Rona, is that a lot of people are dealing with lots of emotions, and people that don't even have diagnosed mental health conditions are dealing with just feeling stressed or feeling angst or anxious or worried or uncomfortable or just going stir crazy or just feeling like so many things are uncertain, because a lot of people's money's really funny right now.
Mm.
And it's stressful. So what I wanted to do was come up with something that's easy to use and practical to help people make it through this time with their sanity intact. So, what I created was something called Coping with COVID Affirmations. It's a set of affirmations that you can say that are very easy to use to help put you in a mindset to have positive energy to make it through this whole uncertain, tragic situation with your faculties intact.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit because, you know, we've had to do a really hard pivot, all of us, because I tell
Hmm.
people COVID didn't pick one gender, it didn't pick one socioeconomic group. It's affecting us all.
It
And
is.
so let's talk about how these mentals for those that are having to be kind of isolated, those that may have gotten so used to being in a
Hmm.
social aspect of the workplace, and now they're sitting in front of their computers working all day long. So let's talk about the mental capacity with that and some tips that we can definitely give our listeners and our viewers today about what they can do to kind of cope with their mental health and this new telemedicine, um, business that we're having to do today.
So we'll talk about a couple quick things that have nothing to do with work. Then we'll go into specifically with people teleworking.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing is being able to give yourself some grace. This situation is not natural. It's nothing anyone is used to seeing or dealing with. It's nothing none of us, most of us in our lifetimes have dealt with. So the first thing is giving yourself with some grace with the fact that it may take a hot second to kind of get into a groove. So not expecting that everything be perfect or that you just feel great all the time. That this is it's difficult. There are a lot of variables and some of them you can't really control. So it's just getting that getting that set in your head that it's okay if it's not perfect. It's okay if you have some days that aren't the greatest. The next is putting yourself on a schedule, and this helps whether you are teleworking or not, is that especially for people that are not going into the office as essential personnel, that you're home and this isn't when you're usually home.
Right.
So it's having a schedule so it doesn't turn into you're not really sleeping because you're staying up late. You kind of get up whenever, lay on the couch all day. It's important to have a schedule because that makes sure that you can make sure that you're still getting some type of activity in, that you're eating regular meals and you're not all of a sudden not have eaten or you're eating late at night or you're grazing all day because your kitchen is 2 steps away. And also having a schedule will help, especially if you're one of the people that are at home with your children and having to homeschool, even though you never had a desire to homeschool ever in your life. That you need a schedule for you and you'll need a schedule for your children because children feel much more contained in a routine. So that will help them feel less stressed if they have a routine.
Right.
So it's important to have that schedule because it helps you take care of your wellness, get your productivity in, but also gives you some time to connect with other people because as Dr. Nissa brought up earlier, that one of the things that people experience, not just from not going out of the house, but also being home from work and not being in their office, is that feeling of isolation. So there's so many ways. We're lucky that this didn't happen. Some of us, we won't date ourselves, remember when there was no internet and there was no way to see anybody without physically being there.
Right. Right.
So we have so many tools right now to be able to still have visual contact and connect with people and to connect with people more than one person at a time. I remember when they first just got three-way calling and three people, you had two or three people that could be on the phone. So, now it's easier than ever to connect with people. And I think staying connected is so helpful for your mental health, just being in the house, be it if you're teleworking or you're just there because you're sheltering in place, is to really intentionally connect. This is a time to call those folks that you've been meaning to call
Oh, yes, that's
and
a
haven't
good
called.
idea.
This is that time that you can finally. I never use my FaceTime. I've used my FaceTime more in the last couple of weeks than all the years I've had an iPhone. They have Zoom, they have Marco Polo, they have House Party, all these different ways to connect with people. And the other thing that's going on are all these DJ parties where everyone's in the same kind of DJ room, or even you can exercise together because of a lot of these streamed exercise content.
Mhm.
I use a Peloton, but there are other people I know that are doing exercise classes online together. But just being creative on ways to connect with people and to actually stay connected and be intentional about connecting with people, I think makes a huge difference.
Yes, so we have some more of our friends that have chimed in. And Dr. Janine says that she needs to do better with her schedule. I understand.
Well, it's easy. And I think the other thing about it's easy to need to do work on it, not that it's easy to do the schedule,
Right.
is that it's important. The other reason to have a schedule and have some things to occupy yourself is because it's so easy to become overloaded with information, either because you're getting all this information on social media, or you're watching CNN and stuff constantly, or you're watching every single news conference that's happening related to COVID, that if you're busy with activities, then you're not going to constantly be taking in all of that information. And we've talked about amongst ourselves that even being doctors and medical professionals, that it's a lot of information for us to kind of
Mm-hmm.
deal with, tease out, and figure out what's real.
Right.
And for people that aren't in medicine, I can only imagine how complicated it is to figure out what things are real, what
Right.
are actually really facts. And there's so much stuff out there that is not factual
It's
in
not.
the least.
I've got so many DM messages saying, Dr. Jones, what is this true? I'm like, no, baby, it's not true. It's fake. That's fake news. Keep it going.
I mean,
Uh,
it's all craziness.
we're gonna be, especially the one they were like, we're gonna gargle our throat with salty water. I say, get out of here.
Can I just
Just go.
fall out of the screen for that one? The one that had the visual of the virus in the
The
throat
COVID
like
in your
this.
throat can
It's
just
like,
sit there
seriously,
horrible.
and like it lives in your throat for days. Just drink hot water.
Now that was one of my grandmama's remedies for sore throat, but not the COVID.
I mean, that's the thing, and I think some of it is being able to manage the information. So by having a schedule, it helps you manage what you're taking in. And if you're watching the news or you're reading all these articles and you find yourself that you start feeling on edge, or your shoulders are tensing up, or you're getting a little bit of a headache or tummy ache, then it's time to take a break.
Right,
It
right,
ain't it's COVID's not going anywhere.
right, right, right.
And the recommendations you can look, ever since this has been going on, no matter how many people have it, it's the same stuff. Stay in the house, wash your hands, don't be like Dr. Ericka, don't touch your face. It's disinfect stuff that comes in the house. It's very, very, very simple stuff. Don't be mixing with folks that aren't in your household. Whoever you are sheltering in place with, I'm sorry, that's who you stuck with.
That's right,
No
right,
visiting, no hanging out.
right,
It's very simple stuff. Very, very simple. Stay 6 feet away. If you do that handful of things, you're pretty safe, so you can lower your anxiety level. So part of it is the things that you can be in control of. And those are things that all of us, especially as adults, can be very in control of. So if we take control of those, then we're good. Why don't we do it?
right. So let's talk about your Facebook group that you have.
Oh, thank you.
I'm gonna try to put it down in this wonderful thing that we got streaming down about.
Hey, I think you're doing a great job. I'm enjoying it. It's a beautiful shade of blue. Your logo looks gorgeous in the side. So while she does that, my group is called Butterflies with Dr. Erica, representing people that are really looking to transform and grow. And it's a group of like-minded people that are just really looking at how we can all help each other get better. And she put it in there. And you can join my group at butterfliesgroup.co. That's butterfliesgroup.co. No, .co, not .com.
That's right. Co. CO. No M. That's right. That's right. So, Dr. Ericka, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I'm quite sure that our listeners, our viewers, they got a wealth of information that they can use right now, because that's really what everything is designed for. It's for you to have your takeaways and you start implementing and executing immediately. So again, I'm Dr. Nissa. I'm your board certified chiropractor and business coach. I help chiropractors and entrepreneurs successfully open up their business by giving them the blueprint to do it without making costly mistakes. You know who I am, and I want to make sure that you get more information from me. I'm at the Boss Up Hub on Facebook. Also, you can go to my website at drnissa.com. That's DRNISSA.com. And thank you so very much. Take care.